Welcome to Uncommon Sense, where we do our best to make it common again. I'm your host, Adrian Ahlquist, and this time I'm joined with two other podcasters. Karl Schudt. I actually don't know how to pronounce your name.
Nobody does. They dropped the umlaut in Ellis Island. It's Schudt.
Karl Schudt. I was going to say Schudt, but Schudt. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Karl Schudt.
The Hut.
Yeah, and Scott Hambrick. I think I know how to pronounce that. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Great. Good to be here.
Well, I actually don't know a lot about you. We got connected through a coworker of mine and a friend of yours, Amy Hunt, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know that you have the online Great Books podcast. Is that right?
Right. Well, it's probably best to explain it by explaining what Online Great Books is first.
Yeah.
The podcast is really, it's to promote what we do there, which I'm really proud to be a part of, and to get people over there. So Online Great Books is, well, what is it, Scott?
Well, we are an online Great Books program. It's in the name. It's all baked in. We try to do what Mortimer Adler wanted people to do when he helped start the basic program at the University of Chicago, and the same kind of thing that St. John's College does, where we help people, normal people. We've got clients that are welders and nurses and doctors and stay-at-home moms and attorneys and HVAC technicians that we send a book to every month, a real live book that they can touch and smell and taste if they want to. And we send them weekly reading goals, little accountability tools to help them read, because these books are available for $1 at the used bookstore, and so many people have wanted to read them and haven't. So we figured out pretty early that helping them stay accountable, give them reasonable reading goals would help them get through these books. So we send them a book every month. They get these reading goals, and then once a month we have a 2-hour seminar where they discuss these books with a seminar host like Karl, and they have a Socratic discussion, hopefully, in that Great Books tradition. And
that's really awesome.
That's
really great. Yeah,
people they're doing that, and to promote that, Karl and I read something every week, and then he and I discuss that book and record that discussion and put it out on the Online Great Books podcast. And our discussions aren't necessarily like the ones that our clients have, but we're trying to produce some infotainment, and Karl and I would probably be having those talks anyway, so we just heat the mics up and put it out.
Well, we
wow.
do have those talks.
So you've become fairly educated in the process, I assume.
Well, we can talk about that. I fall in love with everything I read as I read it. And then I read something else, and then I hate the thing I read before. Like we just read Herbert Marcuse's essay, "The Repressive Tolerance," and
I have not read that, so I'm not going to pretend like I've read that.
That's probably good. I don't know. I think you should read it. It's 18 or 20 pages, and he's from the Frankfurt School. He's not somebody that I would typically want to play cards with or anything. And I read it, and I had a lot of problems with the conclusions he drew, but he was such a keen observer of, what kind of problems there are in society, and he clearly defined what he thought the roots of those problems were, that he really changed my politics. He did not make me a Marcusian. He did not make me a progressive, but he changed my idea of what political action should be. And I don't know. I don't know if that means I'm becoming educated or if these people are scrambling me up and confusing me. I don't know, but I learned something from all of them.
Well,
right.
I think that's the way to read books is to let yourself fall in love. We did a while back. We did a Chesterton book.
I was going to ask if you did Chesterton. Yeah.
Well, of course, it's the Online Great Books podcast. We did, I think What I Saw in America is what we did. Mm-hmm. And so Chesterton shows up in New York, and he's talking about travel in general and how when you go someplace, it's okay to laugh at their funny customs. It's all right. You go to Texas and everybody's wearing some cowboy hats or something, and you can chuckle at that, but then don't scoff at it. there's probably a reason for the hat. Okay. It probably makes sense. You just don't know how it makes sense yet. So go ahead, chuckle. It's fine. Things are weird. But then try to understand why people do what they do. And then maybe make a judgment if you need to make a judgment. But I think that's what you need to do with books too. So, I mean, we've read books. Some of our members wanted us, some of our listeners wanted us to read books that we didn't necessarily agree with. And so we did Marcuse, we did Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, which is, tell you, it's a good book. It's frightening from my standpoint.
Yeah.
But you have to read it and say, okay, Saul, what are you getting at? You have to let yourself go with him, take the steps that he's taking, and you can't just pluck a quote out and say, oh, Alinsky's so evil. You have to read the whole book and walk with him a bit, and then you could say Alinsky's pretty
right. It seems to be the embodiment of the Chesterton quote. He talks about keeping an open mind, like a properly ordered mind, because he says the reason for keeping an open mind is like keeping an open mouth. The point is to close it on something solid, right? And so the purpose of keeping this open mind is to then, actually arrive at a conclusion. And it seems like that's what you guys do at the end of the book. You don't do it before. you walk with them, and then
I try to. You talked about, you said it, Alinsky there, Karl. We read Alinsky. We read a few folks that you would think that we wouldn't be aligned with recently. We read Alinsky, Marcuse. What else?
Edward Bernays.
And I don't like their conclusions, but all those guys have made some arguments and pointed some things out that have made me look at the world differently. And after giving them an honest try, a good faith try, I think I found the things that they were right about. And as I read other things, I may be disabused of some of that, and I may add some stuff to my list of things that Marcuse was right about. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
That's awesome. Yeah. I just want a quick note, not related to anything we were talking about, that today is the first day. It's the student orientation for our Chesterton Academy, because for our apostolate, we have a Chesterton Schools Network, and here we're at the flagship school. So if you hear noise and maybe a stampede, those are students. So I apologize for that. But
don't apologize. Don't apologize. It's like going to a church and somebody glares at the kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Aren't you glad that you got a kid in your church?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
It's
so just I wanted to note that. Well, one thing I think you guys know about is politics, but maybe in a more general way without getting political. We can talk about politics without getting political, I think. Scott is covering his mouth over there. And I wanted to lead this in by saying, it seems like everyone in our society is dissatisfied with the way we conduct our politics and kind of our economy as a whole, or our economics as a whole. And why is it? Why is everyone dissatisfied? Maybe is it for opposite reasons, or is it maybe for the same reason? Why?
You want to go first, Karl?
Oh, sure. There's so many reasons. I live in Cook County, Illinois. It doesn't matter which party I vote for. There's no way that my vote is going to actually make a difference.
See, you and Marcuse agree.
I know. I hate it. I hate it. No, it's like there's this big Leviathan, and there's really nothing that I could do. And it's very frustrating. It's this word's overused, but it's disenfranchising. It's like there isn't anybody whose interests are my interests. That's what it feels like. I think that's probably the way it feels like for a lot of people.
We read Alistair McIntyre's book, After Virtue. Karl beat me on the head with it until I picked it up and read it, which is a big boy book, by the way. Okay. That's a hard book. And McIntyre says that the problem that we have is that people have different peoples have different views of what the good is, of what justice is. They have a different idea of what virtues are, and he also kind of makes an argument that your argument that what you deem to be virtues, as long as it fits your purpose, is probably right for you. Is that right, Karl? Would you buy that?
Well, yeah, it depends on your answer is better than mine, because that's just me being frustrated with my local politics.
Well, that's you said that you don't seem to think there's anybody that shares your interest there, and there's somebody else with completely different political views probably within 500 yards of you right now who feels the exact same way, because our United States, North America, doesn't seem to have large enclaves of people that share notions of what the good are, good virtue is. So how do you act as a political body if we can't even point at anything that we agree is good? Like, how can you imagine, like, you and your family all jump in the car and nobody likes the same food? Like, how do you get to a restaurant? Like, you end up going to a restaurant that nobody likes. You end up at McDonald's. And that's what our politics is. We're all eating at McDonald's and nobody likes it.
Or you don't end up anywhere because you can't decide which way to drive.
Right.
So the point that McIntyre makes, he sees there's a feature of our political discourse, which is there isn't rationality to it. He was writing this in the 80s, that we use words like good and justice and all of that, but they don't have any particular meaning because they're divorced from a robust sense of what the good is for a human being. And we don't have that. We don't have a shared view. And I was thinking about this. I was reading some Nietzsche the other day, and he says, it might be that democracy is a sign of the decay of a society. And I was thinking about that. And Friedrich, he's my friend Friedrich. I don't like his ultimate conclusions either, but he's so much fun.
That sounds like that sounds like the best Disney movie ever. My friend. Yeah. Where some college professor has an imaginary friend that nobody can see, and it's Friedrich Nietzsche. Yeah. That would be the best Disney movie ever, which means they would never make it.
So think about this. To go to Scott's example of people jumping into a car. So imagine some big van, some big homeschool van, and you all jump into it, and you're going to go somewhere, and you don't even, what are we going to do? We're going to go get food. You don't even share a common view of what food is.
Right. We had a discussion of OGB's online great book Slack the other day, and they were talking about animal sacrifices, because we've got a lot of people reading stuff from ancient Greece, when they're killing the fatted calf, and they're wrapping the fat around the thigh bones and giving these burnt offerings. And that discussion went towards this talk about not eating meat as a means of reducing suffering. And then that moved to, well, it won't be long and we won't have to eat meat or animal meat, because we'll be able to make it in tubes. and so I just said, well, that's not food. Like that's no more food to me than Doritos would be. Right. Maybe I could eat Doritos and reduce suffering, whatever that means. But I don't think eating Doritos is good for me. So the friend that I was typing about this with in Slack, and we're never going to get together on this, because if eating Doritos or meat out of toothpaste tubes and Soylent Green and everything is going to reduce suffering, he and I don't share the same calculus.
Yeah. So what you'd have to do, Adrian, we're talking a lot on your podcast, but what you'd have to do is you'd have to back up to a bigger question before what is food. What are you? What is a human being? What is a good life for a human being? This is the question that McIntyre is pointing to that nobody seems to answer. And he thinks you either have to go with Aristotle or Nietzsche. And later he says, either St. Thomas and Benedict or
wow,
Nietzsche.
That's a big shift, at least from Nietzsche.
Well, no, it's an either or. You either have a consistent worldview. You read the Nicomachean Ethics, you got a pretty good idea of of what you're supposed to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And then the virtues fit in quite well with that vision of life. You have to have something like that. And Benedict has that in the Rule. And Thomas Aquinas has that because he's the best commentator on Aristotle that I know. He just makes it Christian. It's not just, it's a big change, but he makes it Christian. If you don't have that, what Nietzsche does is he actually says this, all you English flatheads, he calls them flatheads, who think you can have Christian morality without Christianity. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
He points out if you get rid of God, which he's happy to do, or I don't know if he's happy about it. He might be.
I think he's profoundly unhappy about it.
But he does it, and he knows this is a big deal. He's the one that coined that phrase, "God is dead." But you have to read the whole thing. God is dead, and you killed him. But you don't even notice what a great deed this is. You don't notice all the oceans are dry now. All meaning is drained out of the world.
It wasn't a triumphant claim that he was making.
Mm-mm.
Right. I mean, even Heidegger says only a God can save us now. Too bad he didn't have one. So you've got some kind of ordered society with a vision of what the good is, or you've got nothing. Well, we don't have the vision of an ordered society. We don't know what the good life is. And so, well, let's put it up for a vote. And so you have a consensus of people. Well, this is what I think Nietzsche meant when he says democracy might be a mark of decadence. If you know what the good is, do you really need to vote? I mean, if we knew what the good was, when we jumped in our homeschool van, we would just go to the steakhouse, right?
Of course.
There wouldn't be any debate. It's because we don't know what the good is that we're like, oh, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I noticed how you guys were using the word virtue, and I think that's a very good word. It's kind of in our society, it's kind of shifted to the word value. A lot of people say you have your values, but that gets watered down. I mean, it's a very clear watering down of the idea. But it's what's cool is that I've had discussions with other people about virtues, people who don't usually talk about virtues, and it's really hard to find a problem with that word other than it sounds like a religious word. But if you start to dissect what we mean by virtues and how people have used it in the past, it's just very hard to disagree with, and it's a very attractive idea. The ideas of virtues and the classic virtues too. It's just I think it's a good window into coming to a common ground. That's my idea.
Well, there's a threatening part of it. So you're right.
It requires something of you. It's not like you hold values. No, you have to do virtue.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do anything but consume.
Well, and the question of virtue, so Aristotle's examples, I think he uses the example of a knife. The virtue of a knife is its hardness and its sharpness. If you know what a knife is for, it's very easy to figure out the virtues of a knife. You could go to an engineer who'd never seen a knife and said, I need something to cut with. And he could get you pretty close to a knife.
Mm-hmm.
It needs a place to hold it, needs a sharp part. Well, okay. Virtues for a human requires that you know what a human being is for. And that's a threatening thing. Because, well, I'm not for anything. I'm for browsing TikTok for 3 hours. I'm for Netflix and chill. That's what I'm for.
Mm.
No, you're for glory. I don't know. That's my thought. But you're for something noble.
Right. And our parish priest and on the board of our society, Father Johnson, he said in one of his homilies, and I'll probably never forget it, hopefully, he says, you're not meant to live an easy life. You're meant to live a beautiful life. And it was funny because I had a friend that hated that idea. He just hated it. And it's like, but that's the truth, right? It's true.
Well, if it's not true, then you got to make, so if it's not true, if there's not some sort of objective, beautiful life, presuming the priest has some objective ideas on that, precepts of the church and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Nietzsche says the same thing. You have to live a beautiful life, but for him, you have to make up what beauty is.
Gosh, I would go for that. If we could get a large number of people to just do that, I would go for that. But
it'd be better than nihilism,
right? Economy, or nihilism. So we're in a tough spot because we can't come to a consensus about what these virtues might be or what the purpose of a man, capital M, is, and then we vote. I was thinking, I was laying in bed last night, Carl, and I'm becoming a monarchist. I change my mind about everything about every 9 months. That's how long it takes to have a baby, and that's how long it takes me to change my mind. But for about 40 weeks, I've been carrying this monarchy baby around. Like, I like the monarchy stuff. There's less people to kill when you have to clean it all up. The monarch has a property right in the well-being of the country, of the nation. And I could go on and on, but one of my favorite things about monarchy is you don't have to kill as many people. There just aren't that many tutors you have to kill, to clean it all up. But this stuff where everybody goes to the poll and votes means that if you want political change, you have to kill. If you can't convince, if dialectic fails, you have to kill enough people that vote that your vote will carry.
Yeah, and that's pretty.
And so when we have these incommensurable views of what the good is, you're left with killing enough people that your vote can carry the day.
Right, and this sounds pretty stark, but this is the problem, right, Adrian? If there's no rational basis upon which you and I can have a discussion about which food to go get, all we can do is, it's like in the gym. The rule in the gym is the strongest guy picks the music.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's kind of survival of the fittest, which
Yeah. So
yeah.
These are the stakes. Either there's rationality or there's not. And if there's not, the only way to win is it's the same problem as in the Republic. It's might makes right.
Might makes right.
Book 1 of the Republic, Thrasymachus says this, that justice is the will of the stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the reason of the stronger. It's the will of the stronger.
The first time I heard somebody say social justice as a phrase in the current context was about 15 or 18 years ago. I actually heard somebody I was in a room with say that phrase. Maybe I'm late to the party. I don't know. But I had started a men's group at my church, and there were 15, 20 guys that we'd meet every week, and we had a thing we did and whatever. And there was a guy in there that was talking about social justice. And I had not read more than about 43 words of Plato at that point. And he said, striving, blah, 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 strive, social justice, blah, blah, blah. That word stuff they say. I don't know. But I said, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean, social justice? Like, what's social? Like, what's society? And then how do you render justice to like this what are you talking about? I don't even know what you're doing. And he looked at me and he blinked like Homer Simpson. I actually heard like that boink, boink, boink when he might as well have been speaking Mandarin or something. And then later on, I read Plato's Meno, and he's like, wait a minute. They're having a discussion, and he stops the whole discussion, hollers King's X, and says, no, wait a minute. You ask if virtue can be taught. I don't even want to talk about teaching. What is virtue? Like, what are you talking about? And then in the Plato's Republic, he says, no, what is justice? And I went, oh, this is stuff for me. Like, you can't do anything until you ask all those questions. So he's asking all those questions. They killed him for it. You might not get killed for it now, but you might have trouble banking.
Yeah, you might get canceled.
You might get canceled.
Which is kind of like getting killed.
It is, Adrian. The canceling is very similar for me to the gulag. And
it is the gulag, but you can stay right there in your apartment.
Except you could come back from the gulag. If you did your tenor, you could come back.
We did a podcast, I don't know, a few weeks ago about Belloc's essay on the restoration of property. And I kind of caught some flack, was kind of attacked by people sort of on the libertarian right, because that thing smells a little bit like communism. I mean, let's be honest, it smells a little communism-ish. And they're like, oh, the body count of communism, you know. And that's also made me think, in the same thought, these same thoughts I was having last night, Carl, about, you know, how in monarchy you only have to kill a few people. Well, in democracy, you have to kill a lot more. And then it made me think about this communism thing. I don't think they're going to have to kill people this time, because they can just cancel them. Like, killing is really expensive. It's a lot easier to like uncheck the box at Chase or whatever that allows you to bank there. Like, it's a lot easier to just block your IP address on on whatever website and just not do business anymore.
And then they're dead to you. Yeah.
Then that's a lot easier than like killing somebody with a hatchet and then having.
Yeah. Well, the point of
look, it's easier. There's not going to be a body count.
You read Solzhenitsyn. I mean, the killing. It's not personal. It's business. You know, it's to get rid of troublesome people. If you can make them not troublesome without killing them, then you've achieved the same goal.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys seen Black Mirror at all? the show. There's an episode where if you vote on social media to kill somebody, that person will die through some, you know, technological, you know, thing that comes and kills them, and all they have to do is, you know, a whole bunch of civilians can just vote on social media, and
so it's about Twitter, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's kind of funny, because we were talking about how, you know, getting canceled is like dying. Well, that kind of shows, you know, the ending of that. So okay, so I wanted to ask. So if you have our analogy, you have the family in the car, and no one agrees on what to eat. It wasn't so much a question as a comment. As if you are a family and living together, it's likely that you will eventually develop similar tastes, right?
Yeah, but if you kill all the people that don't eat steak, right? You just kill them.
Right. Yeah, but in this example,
you cancel your kids.
Yeah.
You know what? If you got a healthy family, you probably don't need to vote, because you already. I mean, you're a monarchy. Is it mom or is it dad? I don't know, but it's a monarchy with one common vision of the good. You don't need to vote all the time. If you have no idea where you're going, you got to vote all the time.
Yeah.
It's like cover. You know, it's not. It's rather than me making a decision on what's good to eat, that puts pressure on me, because then I need to know what the good is. No, I'll just say, let's put it up to a vote. And then we end up at Chuck E. Cheese.
Right.
That's not my fault.
Yeah. But so you don't necessarily have to vote all the time, because you've developed, you know, a family or a neighborhood, I suppose. A better, you know.
Well, you just know what good people do.
Mm-hmm.
When you wake up in the morning, do you vote about you taking a shower?
Yeah.
Or brushing your teeth, or doing the necessary things that you need to do? You don't deliberate about those things, because you have a clear view of how to do it and what's good to do.
Yeah. Well, this might be a good segue into, I mean, apart from the monarchy, we want to talk about a different political it's kind of a political system / economic system, which might also provide some insight to these problems. Did you want to take it away on that? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Is there another way to do things? Is that it?
Yeah. But I mean, specifically the fact that if you know your neighbor / you know, family members, you can maybe agree on more, and you don't have to be, you know, you have to not fight them on everything, but it's because you know them. If you don't know them and everything is, you know, separated, and you don't know your next door neighbor, then like you were saying, you don't know if you agree with them on anything. But if it all of a sudden becomes more local and you do know them and they're your friends, it might lead to, you know, a better situation. I want to talk about, I guess, the distributism as maybe a solution to this. Did you guys want to lead that in?
Sure. So if you think about the way things are now, a part of my discontent is in my political system is I live next to an enormous city whose concerns are not mine. And if you are on social media, as almost all of us are, I'm sorry, we should all get off. But your concerns are going to be magnified and national, and a whole bunch of things that you can't do anything about. So if you just follow a news cycle, think of how many of those stories actually affect me, but how many of them do I really care deeply about? Well, if you're following, you're going to care about some emotionally charged picture of some kid somewhere that actually might have nothing to do with you. You know, or you're going to care about some politician's inappropriate tweet or something. And you think, how does that has nothing to do with me? And yet that's where all my care and concern is. And what that is, I think it's probably by design. If you read what some of the founders of Facebook have written, that little dopamine hit, you know, from getting likes and stuff. Right. This is somewhat by design to get you alienated from your own life. So a solution would be get whatever the opposite of alienated is.
Alienated.
Unalienated, reinated to your own life. So we talked about that on our own podcast, that Belloc makes this point that if you have property, you have freedom. And it seems like a little bit of a disjointed segue, but if you're concerned about what's your own and you actually have something that's your own, then do you care if anybody cancels you?
But Karl, what is freedom? You know, I think that's a big problem. You know, we got attacked. Not we, it's mostly me.
Everybody loves me, Scott. I don't know why you're getting attacked.
So much cuddler than me. They, you know, people talk about liberty and freedom, and you know, Belloc in that essay is talking specifically about economic freedom. And freedom now kind of means license. You know, can do whatever you want to do.
Right. That was I remember having a conversation when I was a lot younger, and they were conflating freedom with license. And I still remember that conversation. I want to go back and say, wait a minute, you know, just because you have the freedom to jump off a building doesn't mean you get the freedom to not, you know, hit the ground and die. Right.
Don't worry. You'll get to have that conversation. Next week, probably, because that's prevalent, is that freedom seems to be equated with license. And I actually want freedom from a bunch of things. And, you know, obtaining that economic freedom and owning my own livelihood, like Belloc, like in Indiana for, is very attractive to me. And I can't imagine it not being attractive for anybody. I can't imagine pushing. I don't know where anybody would push back.
So you get your universal basic income, which Belloc talks about. He says that's only cash. That's not freedom. You know, property is freedom. If you're getting cash, it means you're beholden to the people giving it to you. So imagine we put that in, and everybody gets a universal basic income, and well, now what do you get to do with your life? Well, I get to sit on social media. I get to make videos for TikTok or whatever the latest social thing is, and it's depressing. You know, you haven't done anything. You're not free to do anything. You're free to do whatever you want, but the things that you want, you're free to do whatever you want. But what is it that you want? You want the things that are presented to you by the dominant culture. You're not really free. You can only want certain things.
Yeah, if you get UBI, and that's your only income or your main income, You're a consumer. That's it. That's all.
Yeah, and it's concerning that just a few big corporations and big entities can decide that for you. And I mean, yeah, that's one of the main issues that I remember Chesterton has, because Chesterton develops the idea of distributism. That's one of the main problems he has, is just these large entities, just a few people just decide everything for you and control you in the ways that you're talking about. And it's different if there's a lot of different options, a lot of smaller vendors and stuff, and they can, present. Now you do have a lot more freedom, don't you? Because you can decide, what do you actually want to spend your time on. And one thing my dad wanted to mention me to mention in this podcast, Dale Ahlquist, is, podcasting is a good example of this. Instead of just a few, news outlets telling you what's what, now you have this phenomenon of podcasting, and we can, you can pick your podcast, and now you have all these cool outlets for information online. And he wanted to know what you thought about that idea.
Well, all those other podcasts should perish.
All right, then.
Well, podcasts. Carl and I do a podcast. It comes out at Thursdays at about 10 a.m. Central Time. I publish it through a syndication service that will push it out to all kinds of places, right? Podcast listeners may not know this, but if you go to iTunes and subscribe to a podcast and download it, Apple doesn't have a copy of it. They actually kind of point the consumer to us, and then the consumer downloads it from our hosting service that syndicated it to iTunes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So iTunes is there, they've got the traffic, and they say, hey, you might like this Chesterton podcast, or you might like Carl's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then they direct them over to us and whatever. So we syndicate to Spotify and Stitcher and iHeartRadio, I think, and Google Play and all kinds of places, and even YouTube. The audio only is on YouTube. But this market, because of the kind of system that we have here in the United States, the same thing is happening in the podcast market that is happening everywhere else. There are tons and tons and tons of podcasts. The last time I checked, the average podcast on iTunes got about 300 downloads a month. We get that, I don't know, before lunch or something on regular days. So we're in the top quartile. I have no idea even. I don't even look at our ratings compared to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have these tastemakers and these intermediaries there that make kings, So you've got the Rogan podcast, which is pedestrian, and it's the Rogan podcast. He continues to get listeners. How many listeners of the Rogan podcast would be interested in your show? Probably more listeners than you have already.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But because almost every single policy we have in the United States is created to help people aggregate capital, it's going to make it very, very difficult for you to access any of his audience. There is no earthly way. Like, let's say Carl and I decided to do a weightlifting, a strength training, and MMA podcast that is adjacent to his audience, and we do interesting things, and we say funny stuff, and we help people out. There is no earthly way that iTunes would put us in the suggested feed next to the Rogan show. It's just not going to happen. They're going to put one of the other top 20 shows in the recommendations there. So in the podcast market, it's great that anybody with a microphone and an idea can syndicate a show and push it out. It used to be you would have had to broken down a door at the AM talk radio station in your town and begged for airtime and maybe done a show at 2 a.m. or something, and nobody would have listened, and you would have. This is easier, but I think that we could use some distributist sort of policies in the search algorithm.
Yeah.
Just because it's big doesn't mean that that's the show that they should put in front of the person who's searching. You know, if you're if we do a talk about some topic that Rogan does a talk about, and somebody Googles that, we should show up right next to the Rogan search result. But it doesn't happen.
It doesn't do it.
Right.
Why not? Well, because
they rank the searches.
Right.
On the one hand,
the whole darn country ranks everything like that almost.
So the system's not perfect, is what I'm hearing.
No.
Here's another thing. Let me say this: no system is. In politics, people get hurt. In economics, people get hurt. In life, people get hurt. Suffering cannot be eliminated, and nothing is perfect.
And it's important, because if you think you can make it perfect, a lot worse things happen, it seems like.
Yes.
Yeah. What were we going to say, Carl?
Oh, so many things. I think that there are podcasts is very good. I'm a consumer of a few of them. It's good that they're out there, but this trend towards aggregation is a problem. So we have Libertarian Trends. Do you have Libertarian Trends?
Yes, actually, yes, I do. I like,
and so they're big on the rational consumer and the market efficiency and stuff like that. And I mean, how efficient is the market? So we're talking about strength training. So gyms have been closed across the country in many parts for most of this year. And I know a bunch that have gone out of business. Successful gyms have gone out of business because they get shut down. Well, who doesn't get shut down? Well, my governor, the gyms in his hotels did not get shut down.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, because they know the governor. So the fitness centers and hotels did not get shut down. Churches were shut down. Walmart and Target were not. All those little stores couldn't open up, but the big boxes could open up. All of this, who's going to be left standing at the end? There's boarded up stores all over the place. All the small ones are getting crushed.
Yeah, what do we want? Like, as a culture, what do we want? What do we want to happen here?
I want to buy everything from Amazon. I want that to be my only web portal, right? You go to Amazon, you buy what they present to you. Is that freedom? Is that economic freedom? It's efficient. As soon as I start browsing, they got robots putting things in boxes for me.
I was thinking about the rational consumer and efficiency
Mm-hmm.
in the shower.
Okay.
I was in the shower thinking about it. And, my libertarian friends, I was the biggest libertarian in the world. I'm pretty sure. Ain't no more. And my libertarian friends are like, but, the prices, the mom and pop stores more, and the convenience and the service. I'm like, but it's all about what you value. I know people that will buy Lincoln automobiles instead of the Ford. It's the same. It's the same. It's just got some different markings on it. And why do people buy the Lexus instead of the Camry? It's mostly the same. People often choose to spend more. Why don't we choose to spend more to keep the mom and pop in business instead of the other? There's just no way to get a marketing budget behind all of the mom and pop brands, right. But I can get a marketing budget behind the Lincoln emblem or the Lexus emblem or Ralph Lauren or whatever. Name a luxury brand or a high-end brand. And if I was a Chamber of Commerce president, which the Chamber of Commerce is the biggest scam in the United States, by the way, but if it did what it was supposed to do, I think that they need to align buying locally and mom and pop with luxury.
Yeah. I mean,
they really need to do that because consumers sometimes make irrational decisions.
Yeah. And
I'm being generous, Carl. Sometimes
it's funny because all these politicians, their slogan is "small businesses are the backbone of our society," and I mean, you just got to make fun of that because that's that they don't, act like that. They don't act like it's the
No.
backbone of our society.
The way they act is buying from them is a sacrifice you must make.
Yeah.
And we need to make the case that it's a luxury that you're privileged to have.
Yeah.
If Miss Susan down there has a sewing shop, you better go buy some stuff from her because you're lucky to have it. It's a privilege and it's a luxury to have that here because
Right.
it's disappearing, and that's where we need to be.
Right.
Distributism, everybody's binary in their thinking. So if you're thinking about distributism, if you read Bullock's an essay on the restoration of property, it's not all or nothing. Couldn't we just make some decisions that made it easier for normal people to own businesses?
Yeah. Right.
I've been on a little project here with my family, and I've been on this project we have been, and I found that I'm in Oklahoma, and I found that we have a lot of distributist policies here in Oklahoma, and I didn't really know that, or if I did know it, I saw them through some poisoned libertarian view that they were tampering with the market. So I'll give you an example of some of them. Maybe other states could do this. I have no idea, but you can file for what we call homestead exemption for your primary residence. If you live in a house, you can file a homestead exemption, and your property taxes are lower because we want to make it cheaper for people to own their own home in Oklahoma. And so that the consequence is that I think Chesterton and Bullock would love this.
Right.
It's more expensive for the landlord to own the same house because his tax base would be higher. That's good. I think that's good. It's a distributist policy, and I like that. There is also a farm exemption for property tax. So if you're a farm and a homestead, the taxes are even lower. But the rhetoric is, well, it's a farm subsidy. They make your food, bro.
What else should be subsidized but farms?
Yeah. Well, how about shipping for Amazon? That is, I almost got profane. Amazon can ship a book to you at about, I don't know because it's a secret deal. I'm going to guess at about 25% of the cost it costs me to use the same shipping service through the Postal Service. So Online Great Books pays a higher shipping price than Amazon does.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Our government supports that. In Oklahoma, you can file for a sales tax exemption as a farm, and you don't have to pay sales tax on farming inputs. I've over the last few weeks, I've seen a number of these policies, and again, the libertarian rhetoric would be that that's tampering with the market, and that they're subsidizing a special interest. But once you realize that special interest could be you, and that it's not a bad thing for people to grow food, and maybe it's awesome if you pay your house off, what's the bad in that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say we should probably wrap up soon. Out of curiosity, how long are your podcasts usually?
They're 6.5 to 12 hours. They run about an hour 40 to 2 hours probably.
Okay. Well, we have slightly shorter episodes, but I mean we came to some. I think we addressed the problems and talked about the solutions. Just a few policies that would help the local businesses and help us become more local, right?
Yeah. When you vote, I think it's a good thing to think about if I'm voting, if I'm thinking about policy, is the thing I'm thinking about something that would help my neighbors exist?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is this controversial?
Mm-hmm. You're right. Yeah. Any last words, Karl? Also,
that sounds so final.
Or any words.
Well, so I would have. Okay, I'll talk fast. All right. So I want to read a quote from Belloc. It's about. So we got in trouble a little bit. Some people got annoyed with us because the idea that capitalism and communism are actually next to each other.
Right. Yeah.
Idea.
I like that idea a lot, though.
The defenders of capitalism tell us that it may have destroyed men's economic freedom. Under capitalism, a man can less and less choose what he wants. nor express his personality and character in the arts, but at least capitalism's given him in far greater numbers a far greater mass of material goods than he had before it arose. It might steal your freedom, but at least you got lots of stuff from Amazon. The communist goes one better. He says, yes, and under my system, by suppressing economic freedom altogether, we'll give him yet more material goods. We'll see that everybody gets them in unlimited amount. It's the same thing. Okay, when he talks about capitalism, he doesn't mean your neighbor Susie selling needlework out of her storefront.
Yep.
He means Amazon, which is making out fantastically in this pandemic. He means Walmart. He means Target. All the places that have special exemptions that allow them to stay open and accumulate capital while you're screwed. How is this different from the Politburo deciding whether or not you can do business?
Yeah, I think that capitalism, writ large, as we see it now, and communism, see the purpose of the human the same way, Carl. I think that they see humans as either economic or production units, or maybe stomachs to feed, like a nutrition problem to solve, and they don't see.
Which will be the logical conclusion of capitalism, because all your customers won't have any money to their name at the end, basically, and now their mouths to feed. Like you almost have to give back some of the money just to humor the transactions, right?
Their income may go down, but productivity will go up so much that the cost of goods will fall, and they can still get free T-shirts when they sign up for credit cards. You see.
So they're approaching zero, but they never actually get there.
Yes, it's not free trade that's the problem. It's that there are economies of scale that make the vast accumulation possible.
Yeah, it's the iTunes problem we were talking about. When I started online Great Books, I've started several businesses before, and I always limp in because I don't want to commit a bunch of money and find out I've misjudged.
Yeah.
And the way we started was, Adrian, might sign up for Online Great Books. You might have gone to onlinegreatbooks.com/podcast and signed up. And when you did that, I would go by hand and place an order for that book for Amazon Prime and have it sent to your house, because I didn't want to maintain the whole supply chain and all that stuff. Well, we found out pretty quickly that we read some stuff that not everybody reads. We read the plays of Aeschylus. We read the complete works of, we ship out the complete works of Plato. Okay. Some stuff that's not New York Times bestsellers. From what I understand, we are the largest buyer of the complete works of Plato, this edition that we sell. Yeah.
Wow.
It doesn't take a lot to do to do that, but we are at scale there, more than Barnes and Noble, more than Amazon. But I couldn't ship them through Amazon because they wouldn't keep them in stock. So I ended up having to buy these books, hold them in a warehouse, and ship them out as we need them. And that's fine, because we want to make sure we always have what we need to get the stuff to the client on time. COVID came about. Our publishers called me, all of them, except for one, and screw those guys. But the other ones are great. And they called me and they said, hey, this COVID thing, we're going to probably have to shut down. And we're shutting down Friday. If there's anything you need over the next 90 days, you better let us know. I ordered 6 months worth of books. It cost us a fortune. But we were able to get them in there. So my point, I'm not sure what it is, but we're at scale in the niche we're in. We are, as far as I know, we are the biggest purchaser of most of these books out there. But we have no competitive advantage. None. Now, if you say that our competitor is University of Chicago's basic program, which is a great books program, we maybe do have some advantages there because we don't have to maintain a classroom and pay a natural gas bill and some of those kinds of things. But in terms of just getting books into the hands of readers, we don't have those advantages. And, if somebody was going to go look for the great books online, Amazon's probably going to be in the top results.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Even if they're looking for a great book school, and all of this, there's probably some libertarian out there saying they're just crying because they're not winning.
Well, kind of,
You know,
but more detailed than that.
yes, I am crying because I'm not winning, and I should win everything. But we're not in the Amazon game. Amazon is winning games they're not even playing. Seriously. And that's a big problem. That will naturally result in stifled innovation that the people of the free market right worship.
For sure. And we know that when you're struggling for money and struggling to survive, your IQ goes down, and it's functionally it goes down, and you become less creative. So you're right about the fact that this will stifle creativity. I think that's very true. Yeah. So we should probably wrap up. I don't want to stop a good conversation, but you can come back on.
I'd be happy to come back on.
I think a 12-part series is in order here.
A 12-part series. Okay, good. We're doing a My Name is Lazarus series but we're interrupting it to bring you this podcast. But yeah, we could just do a 12-part series.
Well, look, if you want to have more conversations like this, you can sign up. We'd invite any of your listeners that want to come over to onlinegreatbooks.com/podcast. We'd be happy to have you. You pay a monthly fee. I think it's pretty low. You get the book, which sometimes is the complete works of Plato, which is a big chunk of a book. So you don't have to buy the books. Everybody who goes through it says, well, I didn't see what the point of this was. And then they go to the seminar and they say, oh, that's what the point of it was. So you spend 2 hours talking like we're talking here about the most important things in life. You make friends with your seminar group members. They'll be lifelong friends. We have some seminars that have seminar one's been around forever, and they're going to be lifelong friends. It's what college should have been.
Yeah, I believe that. I encourage our viewers to in fact go and sign up for that. I might actually do that right after this.
Oh,
I double dog dare you.
Okay. Okay. Great. Well,
I've got to put a disclaimer on there. I don't lead any seminars. I'm the most opinionated person in the whole organization, and I don't lead any seminars. The seminar is quite different, but I call it big talk. It's the opposite of small talk. We talk about important things. We talk about the things that make us most human, and I think we have fair and honest and good and productive discussions in there.
Yep, and we try
very much.
We try not to, at least when I run seminars, I don't care what you think at the end of 2 hours. I don't care that you come to a conclusion. This is why it's better than college. I care that you think.
Right. Teaching you how to think, right?
Yeah, I don't care that you get what I think is the right opinions about Aristotle. That to me, that's shameful. That's not what teachers should do. We don't teach, actually. We just run seminars. You think maybe you'll convince me.
Or
that's
Adrian,
the whole point.
So he wants out so bad. He's like, guys, it's an hour.
No. I would love to have long form podcasts, but I have to also plug our stuff real quick.
Yes, please.
So by the time this podcast is released, we will have released a new video series for our membership, for our members, for the society. It's going to be called Common Sense on Tap. And this podcast is called Uncommon Sense. If you want the common sense, you need to become a member of the society. And so if you go to chesterton.org/membership, you can sign up to become a member. And the series, the Common Sense on Tap, will feature Dale Ahlquist and Kevin O'Brien right now. They're going to be giving commentary on Chesterton's book, Orthodoxy. So another great book. And yeah, so other than that, I think we're good, right? I think we're ready to end this podcast episode.
Membership's just $59 a year.
Yeah, $5 a month.
Come on.
Yeah, and it's going to get better. So I mean, thank you for noting that. We're going to be constantly adding stuff to this membership, and there's just a ton of content. So I do encourage you to sign up for this.
Yeah, you guys can find that much in the couch cushions and the ashtray in the truck. Go do that and go to org/membership and sign up.
Yeah.
Free leaders.
Great. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Well, until next time, everyone, help us to make uncommon sense more common.